Hey, Dog Nation, I'm Brandon Adams, and welcome into this very special presentation of Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger, where coming up in just a moment, four-star offensive tackle Tate Ratledge will make his college decision. Now, Ratledge has been good enough to let us in on some of his thinking, and you see live there in Rome, Georgia, the Darlington School, the two hats on the table, Georgia and Tennessee. For Ratledge, this has been something that he's let us in on now before, going back to an announcement he recently made on social media. Not a surprise that it's the orange hat of the Vols and the red hat of the Dogs on the table here because of what Ratledge himself has told us. In fact, here is Ratledge on social media laying out what his finalist plan already was. Ratledge has been pretty clear about all of this, that it does come down to Georgia and Tennessee on this. This was his final two. He's spoken to a Dog Nation about kind of how he got to this point, and this young man, who we're going to hear from in just a moment, will make his announcement live on these Dog Nation video channels. Well, it's obviously a pretty big battle here between the Tennessee Vols staff and the Georgia coaching staff, led obviously by offensive line coach Sam Pittman. And this battle will come to a head, the culmination in just a moment, when Tate Ratledge will make his choice between the Dogs and the Vols. We're actually going to hear an interview with Ratledge coming up in just a moment to set the scene for his college announcement here today on a special Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. But before that, let me give you a few of the kind of the fast facts on Ratledge to kind of get you up to date on who this young man is and what this young man brings to the table and what all the fuss is about. First thing you notice here is the fact that we're talking about another very big offensive lineman. 6'7", 302 pounds. You know, that's kind of the, if you've ever been to Six Flags, one of these amusement parks, you must be this tall to ride this ride type of thing. That's kind of become the way with the Georgia offensive line as of late. You got to be a big, tall guy. You got to be north of 300 pounds. Other than that, for the most part, Georgia just really hasn't been interested in you. And Tate Ratledge, because of that long frame, because of that big body, fits the mold of what Sam Pittman's looking for when it comes to his offensive lineman. And for Georgia, which at this stage is only swimming in the deepest of recruiting waters, another example of this. How about number 39 overall prospect? After winning last week with the nation's number 11 prospect and five-star linebacker Mikhail Sherman, what an unbelievable jolt of momentum it would continue to be for Georgia's 2020 recruiting class if the number 39 prospect could be in the fold here. Also, one of the things that makes Ratledge, I think, fun for a lot of Georgia fans is the fact that Ratledge, unlike many of the recruits that Georgia's going after as of late, is actually from the state of Georgia. Now, Rome, geographically, is not as close to Athens as some of the other programs around the state are. In fact, from a driving standpoint, it's about probably equal distance to Knoxville as it is to Athens, but nonetheless, a lot of Georgia fans like the idea that Georgia's staying in the state potentially here to get Tate Ratledge. But the battle itself is going to be a challenging one for UGA, as Jeff Sentell has reported at DogNation.com, and as Ratledge has been pretty open about talking about the fact that, you know, even though he plays in the state of Georgia, his family's actually been Tennessee fans. There's a famous story, you can read more about this at DogNation.com, about the fact that Ratledge's dad has that Power T, as unattractive as that is to many of us, that Power T sticker on the back of his pickup truck. So there is a little bit of a family connection to Tennessee that Georgia's trying to battle against as it looks to add another member to its 2020 recruiting class. I'm going to give you a chance to find out more about Ratledge in just a moment. Hear him in his own words. Before that, let me remind you that we'll take this decision live on the air here today on this special edition of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. And by the way, speaking of Kroger, they've got a great deal for you right now, especially if you're getting ready for some Memorial Day travel. Every Thursday through Sunday, through May 26th, you can save 2 times the fuel points when you download the coupon from the Kroger app. Now, if you're going out of town for Memorial Day, that's a great chance to earn 2 times the fuel points on select items in your local Atlanta Kroger now through May 26th. Please make sure you check out that. All right, you see on your screen there the Darlington School in Rome, Georgia. The Georgia hat on one side, the Tennessee hat on the other. Which will Tate Ratledge choose? We're going to have to wait to find out, but we can get a little bit of a clue as to what Ratledge's thinking is. We can get a little bit of an idea on how he arrived at this point. Recently, Jeff Sentell had a chance to sit down with Ratledge. What was a wide-ranging, fascinating conversation about a lot about this young man as a player, including some things you may not have known, including a different position he plays for his high school team, in addition to the great work along the offensive line. So before we hear from Ratledge making his announcement live, let's learn more about him now in a great interview that Jeff Sentell recently conducted on this very special edition of Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger.
Dog Nation takes a lap around the Tate Ratledge story by first learning about Tate Ratledge, the punter. Yes, that's right, Tate Ratledge, the punter.
Well, that's our little guarded secret right there. That's actually his favorite part of practice. If you ask him what part you look forward to, Tate, it's always special teams because he likes to show off his skills.
What's that all about? Where'd that come from, and why are you the varsity punter?
We were messing around at practice one day, and I picked up a ball and just kicked it, and Coach was like, "Who did that?" And I was like, "That was me." He's like, "Can you do that again?" I was like, "Yeah, I can." And then I did it again. He's like, "All right, you're our punter," and it kind of just took off from there.
What do you think is his sharpest or strongest tool?
I think just his athleticism. When you compare that with his size, you go back to his role as a punter. He is a true athlete in a 6'7", 300-pound body.
What is the longest punt? Which one is his best punt? Does he have a 45, 50?
Oh yeah, no, he's got a 47-yard punt.
What was his average?
He was a 39-yard net this year. And the thing about Tate is it's not always a thing of beauty, but it's so high, there's not a whole lot of returns. So.
What does he look like? His best clips on his film, what is he doing, Coach?
Well, I just think it's initial movement and then finish. He's so powerful. It's like I said, he's not just a big plodding body. He's so athletic and powerful. He comes off, his initial punch is very quick with power, and then his just ability to finish blocks, I think.
Is he a true tackle? Is he a versatile guy that can play some guard and some tackle, or where do you see him on Saturday?
No, I think he's every bit athletic enough to be versatile. I think right now you'd probably go in and say that guy's a tackle. But with the feet he has and the way that he can move and bend, that's the other thing about Tate is for a kid that size to be able to bend like he does, I think that creates some versatility for him across the line of scrimmage. Tate's one of those guys, if you pull up his Twitter, if you pull up his social media, you're not going to see "blessed to receive my bazillionth offer." That's just not how he does it. He's not a self-promoter. The name on the front of his jersey is much more important to him than the name on the back. He's always been that kind of kid. And, I think he has in his mind narrowed it down to 4 or 5 places, but I think he's keeping it close to the chest, and we don't press him on it. We want him to go play where he wants to go play at the highest level and be comfortable with what he decides.
A little height.
2018, it was from sophomore year to that year was a lot more maturity. I got to the point where during games I want to physically dominate people and make them where they really don't want to play me again.
Size-wise, what are you? Like if your football card, the back of your football card last year may have said 6'5", 285, 290 maybe? What was it?
I was 6'5", 295. Now I'm about 6'6", 6'7", 300. I'm 305 right now, I think.
6'6" and a half. Is that when you get? Does Tennessee measure you? Does Georgia measure you? Where have you been?
They really don't measure me anymore.
It's probably a good sign. Tate, where are you at right now? Simple question. I mean, some guys want to get it done before their senior year. Other guys want to carry it all the way out and do it at a game. What feels right for you right now with your process?
I feel like right now I'd like to get it over before my senior season, but I'm also going to these camps these next 2 weekends trying to get invited to a game. So I feel like if that happens, I might wait to do it to a game. But I'm not a big put myself out there I'm gonna get all this media attention and stuff like that. So I might just do it simple thing on Twitter or something like that.
If you had to decide tomorrow, if tomorrow was National Signing Day, do you know?
I do not. I have no clue right now.
Do you know which hats would be on the table, I guess, a little bit? Do you know who would be in it?
If I had to say right now.
All right, so we'll take a break from Tate Ratledge's interview right there. Looks like Ratledge is getting seated there at the desk. Looks like we may be getting ready to go here with this announcement in just a moment. In fact, there it is right now. Now, I can't hear what Ratledge is saying, but our friends behind the glass can. So looks like when he's ready to make his announcement, we'll go that live there and get ready to hear it. Dexter Spann in our Facebook comment section was saying that he thinks that the Tennessee hat looks like it's been used more than the Georgia hat is. Obviously, hat science becomes a big part of all this kind of stuff, that trying to figure out which hat hasn't been used at all. A lot of times when there are 3 or 4 hats on the table, one of them clearly almost still has the tag on it. It's never been worn. And what Dexter said, and a lot of other Facebook commenters were kind of saying the same thing, there was really some of this chatter on YouTube as well, that both of these hats are kind of broken in. Both of these hats look like they've been worn. There were some Georgia fans concerned that maybe the Tennessee hat had been worn more. So you're not necessarily getting a big tip-off from either hat here. With only 2 hats on the table, it's easy to reach for one, easy to reach for the other. This is one that I think a lot of Georgia fans have felt good about for a while, but if you look at our comment section, there's also a lot of cautious optimism, a lot of thoughts of, hey, given the fact that the family has cheered for Tennessee, given the fact that the Vols are a little bit of a presence in that Rome area, that this might be one that Tennessee has a chance to win here. So obviously we're only a couple of minutes away from this announcement being done and going down, and so we shall check it out and see what happens when it takes place in this very special edition of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. I'll also give you an idea, one way or another, whatever Ratledge does after the fact. We will hopefully hear from him in his own words about the decision that he has made. You heard a preview of that coming up a moment ago. And then obviously Jeff Sentell, who is there in Rome today at the Darlington School where this announcement is going to take place. We'll get a chance to get some kind of behind-the-scenes information from Jeff. A lot of times that ends up being some of the most interesting parts of all of this, the kind of story behind the story, what you see around the room and the feeling of a room, especially in a place like this where, let's face it, a lot of the folks who are on hand like the idea of maybe Ratledge going to Georgia. So there's going to be some tension in that room up to this moment in time where a lot of those folks who maybe cheer for Georgia in that Rome area are obviously hoping they get the good news from Ratledge. It's worth pointing out that doesn't seem very nervous right now. He's kind of waiting for the green light to go ahead and make the announcement he wants to make. There's a lot of laughs. There's not a lot of tension on the stage, at least. Ratledge certainly seems to be pretty comfortable. There's some talk about maybe some various red and black maybe in the room already. Some of the commenters are mentioning that. We'll see. Galen Jacobs says his mom looks like a nervous wreck. That's sweet to see. Yeah, obviously on this day after Mother's Day, what a big deal it is for Miss Ratledge one way or another that her son's getting a chance to play major college football, will do so at the SEC level. That's a pretty cool thing to see. I believe we should only be about a minute or two away on this. We had a little bit of a tip-off as to what time this might go down. So in the next 60 seconds or so, we're going to be able to let you hear from Ratledge. We'll get a chance to do that. And so you should be able to have good audio on this and be able to hear this really well as Ratledge obviously makes his decision. He's surrounded not just by family, but the coaching staff there from the Darlington School, one of the fine programs up in the north part of the state in the Rome area. It's a really impressive thing to see. Somebody mentioned in the comment section something that Ratledge had said during his interview. Eddie Carswell says, I thought he didn't want media attention. Yeah, for the most part, Ratledge is not really big into the media thing, but obviously when a good offensive lineman like this gets ready to make his decision, there's going to be a lot of attention on him, kind of whether he wants it or not. So Ratledge is a young man that hasn't necessarily sought it out, but that kind of attention is going to seek him out because, let's face it, for a program like Georgia that needs offensive tackles, Ratledge is definitely one of those that could definitely bring some much-needed depth to Georgia this position. Andrew Thomas is expected to maybe go to the NFL after this season. Isaiah Wilson could. As deep as Georgia is at both the guard and center position, tackle is a position where there's probably not quite as much depth. So I think that's something important to see and something important to think about. As soon as I get the thumbs up from the people over here about when the announcement's beginning, it looks to my eyes that it's not beginning yet. There's still kind of a holding pattern. But once some noise and some chatter begins, I'll get the thumbs up, and I'll stop talking, let you hear from Ratledge himself. I won't be able to hear it on my desk, but you'll be able to hear it right there where you are, and so that should be a lot of fun to kind of watch all that play out. Marshall Cohn on Facebook says, no doubt this is a big dog. Yeah, Ratledge has the look of those offensive linemen that Sam Pittman has chased down. Those big guys, true tackle, long arms, the kind of guy that can get his hands on you and keep you at length. He's definitely built the way that Sam Pittman likes for his offensive tackles to be built. So that's a good thing to see. Light Dog 1968 talking about the presence of the Dog Nation mic. No presence from any kind of like Vol Nation mics. I don't know if there's any kind of Tennessee coverage that's on par and equal to what we do here at Dog Nation. Not quite sure about that. Enrique Murillo on the subject of this saying it would be another great offensive lineman to go to Tennessee. Yeah, obviously it's worth pointing out that Tennessee has had some success there with Wanye Morris and with Darnell Wright. Two offensive linemen for the class of 2019. Tennessee big winners there with those. But Georgia obviously going to try to get the one that it wants here in Tate Ratledge. Ratledge has no doubt been a major priority for UGA, and they're going to try to close the deal on this today. Danny Blackman saying that Darlington is a prestigious school. Yeah, it certainly has the look of that. Certainly has certainly an impressive characteristic of a school, and obviously one of the things that Kirby Smart has made the hallmark of his recruiting is he goes after these guys from good schools, from strong education backgrounds. They make you good football players. And I'll once again remind my producers that when y'all hear something, let me know so we can go in there and get in on this. Kirby Smart likes good academic guys. It's not just lip service. It's something that he takes very seriously. And schools like the Darlington School certainly prepare you for that really well. You can see a mood change if you'll notice on the set here. Ratledge's mood hasn't changed a ton, but around Ratledge, the closer we get to the announcement, this is just Napa, right? I mean, I have a camera in my face and lights on me 100 hours a day, so I just get used to this. For other people, they're not quite as used to that. All right, let's go live and see Ratledge make his announcement here.
Will you count to 10 just one more time? Count to 10 for me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So it looks like we're still kind of getting ready for that. But as I was saying before, when you have cameras and lights on you all the time, and you kind of get used to it after a while, but for the people around Ratledge right now, this is a little bit of a new experience. This is not something they've done a ton of in the past. So you can tell that what started out as kind of a light, kind of easygoing mood has gotten a little bit more nerve-wracking around here just because of just knowing you're being watched. And right now we have thousands of people in the Dog Nation video channels watching this broadcast, and many other people around the South also going to be paying close attention to this. When you know that you're being watched, there's a little bit of a different feel to that. So good enough for them for bringing us all in on what is a big day for Tate Ratledge one way or another, and hopefully it'll go the way that our audience wants it to go, and that maybe Georgia fans can add another big member to its 2020 class. Craig Greer says, does he have a Florida hat under the table? No, I don't quite think he does. At one point in time, he did mention Florida along with Auburn and I guess another school as a potential top 5 situation, but really that's been whittled down now for a while. We showed you the tweet a little earlier of a Ratledge down to just Georgia and Tennessee, and this is one of those things where a lot of times the public proclamations of top 5s and things like that, within the industry, our own Jeff Sentell can tell you more about this, within the industry, it's been thought to be a Georgia-Tennessee battle for a while on this. And so my guess is we'll see no surprise hat in front of the table because, A, Ratledge doesn't seem like that kind of guy, and B, the two hats that you see line up pretty closely with what guys like Jeff Sentell have been telling us for a while. This was going to be Georgia and Tennessee. And by the way, when it comes to classes of 2021 and beyond, these Georgia-Tennessee battles for offensive linemen in particular, Tennessee spent a lot of money on its offensive line coaching staff. That's a program that wants to be good at that. They want to be dominant on the line of scrimmage the same way that Georgia does. We should expect to see a lot more of these kinds of battles in the future. They're going to be going after many of the same kinds of offensive linemen. Tennessee's put a lot of resources in its offensive line recruitment, and so expect to see that kind of be a thing, this trend of Georgia versus Tennessee for a coveted prospect. We may see this a lot in the days ahead. As much as y'all know, for those of you who watch and listen to Dog Nation Daily, I'm a big Gator hater. As it stands right now, Florida doesn't really have that inroad with any position group to really be a threat to Georgia. But Tennessee, to its credit, under Jeremy Pruitt, they haven't won a lot of games on the field yet, but they've clearly won in recruiting in some respects, in some cases taking players that Georgia would have liked to have. So Tennessee hasn't made a name for itself on the field under Jeremy Pruitt yet, but there's no doubt there's some ripples in the recruiting industry because of the work that Pruitt's been able to do. So you may see a lot more of these kinds of ceremonies in the future where there's a Georgia hat on one side and a Tennessee hat on the other. And, boy, it's amazing how similar those two hats look right now. Kind of both bills kind of shaped the same way. To me, they both look relatively broken in at the same level. I know there had been some chatter that Ratledge has been kind of wearing both sets of gear around Rome, and that's pretty typical for recruits no matter what school they're going to. So difficult to get much of a tip-off on that. Georgia fans and the Tennessee fans who may be tuned into our broadcast as well, just going to have to wait and find out. Brent Wilson says, is he committing today? Yeah, he's going to commit in just a second. In fact, I see him talking. Let's go to it live.
And for always supporting me. To Coach Eighth and all the past and my current coaches for pushing me to be my best. To all of my family, friends, teammates, and the whole Darlington community, that have been there for me. Our trainers, Donnie and Brent, who have helped to keep me healthy and on the field, for all the coaches that have given me the opportunity to play at the next level. This has been a long process and it's been tough with so many great schools, and at the end of the day, I can only commit to one. With that being said, I'm thankful to say I'll be furthering my academic and athletic career at University of Georgia.
All right, great stuff there from Tate Ratledge. How about that? And if he starts talking, we'll give you a chance to hear from him here. He may be interviewed in just a moment. But you love the fact that Ratledge just gets right to it. Tells his story, says his piece, says what he had to say, and then he puts on that impressive-looking Power G with the red hat, looking good in a suit and tie. All business here for Ratledge. Pretty impressive stuff. Let's hear a little bit more from him.
Where they're going, the direction they're going, and winning national championships, that was really the main factor.
What was Sam Pittman's reaction when you told him you were coming?
No, he was pretty excited, to say the least.
Mom, Dad, how's it feel to be over with now for you guys?
It feels good. Tate's it's been a long process, and he's really thought it through. And you know, along the way, everyone always told him was you got to find a place where you're comfortable and where your heart tells you to go. And Georgia ended up being that place.
Cody?
Rusty, you were just up in Baltimore. Georgia got another 5-star. They pick up a 4-star here. What does this mean for the Dogs?
I mean, they're rolling right now, and that's what you do. Not only are they getting two of the top players in the country, but no one.
All right, so what an incredible story. What an incredible moment. I love the theme around there of this is a young man that's put a lot of work into his decision-making process. He has definitely paid close attention to kind of what he wanted to do. I think it's been a deliberate process for Ratledge, and he's made the choice that he wanted to make in committing to the G, as the saying goes. And this is another example of Sam Pittman, the well-regarded offensive line coach for Georgia, getting his man. And, boy, I got to tell you, Ratledge looks so much like a Georgia offensive lineman under Sam Pittman. Big, tall guy, long arms, north of 300 pounds. You know, you see the way that these big offensive linemen have impacted the scene on the field for Georgia, and Ratledge could be the next generation of that. A lot of applause all the way around here for him, and that is a round of applause that is well-deserved. And, look, I think for a lot of Georgia fans, there has been this thought of, ooh, let's wait and get to May and some fun stuff might happen. Well, guess what? It's May, and the fun stuff is happening. It was Mikal Sherman last week. It's Tate Ratledge right now, and no doubt this is a Georgia recruiting class with a ton of momentum heading into what could be a really fun summer. And it's happening on both sides of the ball. And for a Georgia class this year that because of just the overall scholarship numbers is going to be limited. In all likelihood, Georgia's not going to be able to sign 25 guys necessarily. But it's going to be able to target the guys that it wants. And you see major top elite prospects all the way around. When there's a longer press conference with Ratledge, let's take that. I'm not quite sure what's happening here right now. But if we get Jeff Sentell up there talking to Ratledge, we'll go back and let you hear from Ratledge again in a second. We'll also get Jeff Sentell ourselves here coming up in just a couple of moments. So this is great stuff. Absolutely fun as Tate Ratledge is committed to the G and becoming a member of Georgia's 2020 class. And what a great job the Darlington School has done preparing him for this big moment. It's a great thing to think about. Bobby Taylor says the Great Wall 2.0, and I kind of like that from Bobby because we are in a moment where we are about to see kind of a regeneration of that offensive line under Sam Pittman. Remember, Andrew Thomas comes in 2017 as a freshman, becomes a starter. And the offensive line's kind of been built around him ever since then. But there is a very good chance, and virtually every early mock draft has had Andrew Thomas as not just a first-rounder, but maybe a top 5, top 10 pick. Really good chance that Thomas is gone after this spring. Isaiah Wilson will be draft eligible. He could go too. Then you start thinking about what guys like Solomon Kinley and Ben Cleveland do. Those were 2016 signees. The whole notion of it being Great Wall 2.0 means that Sam Pittman's going to face for his first time as Georgia offensive line coach. Let's go see some of these questions here from Tate.
Being a fan of when I was a kid, that I probably would not be as happy as I would have been making where my gut wanted me to go.
Does Jake Camarda need to be on notice in Athens, the punter that had Georgia right now?
He does.
We could see him punting at Mambo last year. How has it been, this whole process? I mean, I'm sure there's been all kinds of recruiting visits and calls, and it's all coming to an end now.
Oh, yes, sir. I just think that
yeah, so we're going to get some more from Tate Ratledge in just a moment there. He's taking some questions. Hopefully he'll have a chance to get some more some more questions going. We'll hear from Jeff Sentell with Ratledge coming up in just a moment. So great stuff. If you're just joining us, the 4-star offensive tackle Tate Ratledge has chosen Georgia over Tennessee, a major recruiting win, and it becomes a part, as we were saying a moment ago, kind of a new population of Georgia offensive linemen in what could be the post-Andrew Thomas era, the post-Isaiah Wilson era, at least maybe. Roderick Jones expect to be a part of this. Akiala Agunbi, who just recently committed to the G, he's expected to be a part of this. And then Clay Webb, a part of the 2019 class. And now Tate Ratledge looking to be a part of the 2020 class as well. So good stuff coming up. We'll get Jeff Sentell with him in just a little bit. And we'll have a good time with that there coming up in just a moment. Telvin Phelps says he should toss the hat, Quay Walker style. Yeah, every time I see a Tennessee hat on a podium from now and forevermore, that's what I'm going to be thinking about. Quay Walker taking the Tennessee hat and tossing it there. That's certainly a great thing to see. Kelly Bridges says, congrats, Tate. That's certainly a big moment for him. No matter which school he would have chosen, this is the kind of moment that young players like this dream of, and he gets a chance there. That's pretty great to see. James Crump says, let me get James Crump's comment here. He says, I don't know if our program will ever have another true freshman starting on the offensive line, too much talent and depth. I think that James is for the most part right about that. In 2017, Andrew Thomas was a necessity for this program. Now it's about building that depth. It's about putting more of a succession plan in place, and that's clearly what they're going to get a chance to do. By the way, you see Jeff Sentell right there in the middle of our camera. He's got his camera there, so we'll let Jeff talk to him in just a moment. When Jeff does that, we'll let you get a chance to hear that. Ken Feinberg also saying, now how about bringing on Paris Johnson, I'm going to say one-time Ohio State commit. It's not clear what his current commitment status to the Buckeyes is, but Ken says, how about Paris Johnson next? As you see on your screen, Tate Ratledge doing some pretty impressive work. Guy that likes to slam guys in the turf. You certainly know that's going to be a nice thing for Georgia, and that'll be fun to see. Wyatt Fielden says 6'7", 305, big kid. Can't wait to get him on the field. Bigger than Andrew Thomas. Once he gets to college and our training staff and athletic trainers, this kid's going to be a big monster to mess with. Yeah, one of the things you like about these really tall frames is you can hang a lot of good weight on those. And, you can really transform a body when you've got that raw material to work with, that frame, those long arms, long body. That really gives you a chance to do that, which is a great thing to see. Susie Kathy Gottschall says, welcome to the dog family, Tate. Can't wait to cheer you on. Susie, that's very well said. Let me pop over here to YouTube for a moment while we're waiting to let Jeff Sentell get set up with Ratledge. Croking 123 says UGA is rolling in recruiting for this time of year. Certainly gives me more comfort for the future. Yeah, I think, Crow, when you look in on the Georgia recruiting class for 2020, one of the things you see is that Georgia right now doesn't have quite as many commits other programs do, and from a 2021 standpoint, it's well behind, at least what most programs have done. However, what you got to make sure you notice is the average rating of each of these players, the fact that Georgia and the commitments that it has accepted, these are only elite players. Georgia's not bringing in any kind of roster fillers or practice bodies, nothing like that from the class of 2020. They are targeting specific players, specific needs, all major bold print names, and Tate Ratledge the latest of those. By the way, if you're just joining us, this is a special Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. I am in our Dog Nation World Headquarters studios in Atlanta. Our buddy Jeff Sentell is live in Rome, Georgia, at the Darlington School, and we're going to get him coming up in just a moment. I'll also remind you that we're in the 9 o'clock hour here, but Dog Nation Daily going to roll on like always this morning just after 10, so we'll be live and be able to do that with you coming up in just a moment. Cool Breeze 901 says, could Justin Rogers be next? Now, Rogers is an interesting story for those of you who were not quite aware or maybe have forgotten. Kind of what I think of as an interior offensive line prospect, although Rogers himself does not necessarily like to be thought of that way, who is at one point in time thought to be a major Georgia lean, also a former Ohio State commit. Well, Rogers is taking a visit to Georgia coming up this weekend, and he's going to make his commitment announcement on May 20th. At this point in time, this looks to be the kind of battle that Tennessee might have a chance to win, or maybe Kentucky is thought to be the lead favorite here. Georgia no longer is, although maybe in that conversation on his official visit on May 17th, it is the last official visit. After all, maybe Georgia will have a chance to impress upon him to change his mind and reconsider. So that is another offensive line prospect that Georgia has been thought to be in the mix for, although it's fair to point out maybe less in the mix for Rogers than it once was. Of course, the man at the center of all this is the man that you see on your screen. That's Sam Pittman. In fact, Mr. Lambo446 on YouTube says, "Hey, hello, BA. It's the Sam I Am Pittman. He keeps striking the go." Yeah, listen, Pittman's done a great job here, no doubt about that. John Anthony on YouTube kind of expressing the same thing. Eric Anderson says he thinks that Eddie's peeking behind his blindfold, and maybe there's a chance he was. No doubt about that. Cliff Payne says, "Is there any doubt that Sam Pittman is the best offensive line recruiter in the nation?" And boy, I can't imagine anyone's going to do a better job, Cliff, than what Pittman's been able to do. That's a pretty fun thing to think about. Timothy Nelson says, "Hey, Adams, we're not playing games when it comes to recruiting. And no, there are no games being played here. This has all been very impressive stuff for Georgia." Danny Carter brings up a different position. He says that he thinks the Keely Ringo might be next, the very impressive defensive back prospect from out of Arizona, a guy who's taken some visits to Georgia, including a visit for G-Day. And obviously Ringo is one of those major targets for UGA. And we'll obviously have to see how that plays out. But clearly there is no player that Georgia thinks it can't win with right now, given the recruiting wins that it has gotten. And let's not forget who might be peering in and paying close attention to this today. Dare I say an offensive line, or I should say a running back like the 5-star prospect Kendall Milton, or maybe Marshawn Lloyd, or someone along those lines. When you see big offensive linemen lining up in droves to come to Georgia, you got to think that makes this program more attractive for our running backs as well. So not only is this good news for Georgia to get Ratledge is himself a really good player. Got to imagine this video feed that you've been watching right now, it has been peered in upon. I imagine Carson Beck took a peek at this today. I'm imagining that Kendall Milton's camp, probably took a bit of a peek at this. Offensive linemen have a way of attracting skill position players too, and so keep that in mind as Georgia celebrates its recruiting win here today. Van Bird says, and by the way, it's good to see Van in our comment section again. He says, "Now I know why Arkansas was so upset when Pittman left," and that's true. Pittman was a major loss to the Hogs when he left that program, and a major acquisition for Georgia when he came in. I think that's exactly right. Telvin Phelps asks about Kendall Milton. Is he looking at Alabama seriously? And I think at this point in time, I guess it's sort of hard to know. I mean, I think the one thing that you know about Milton for sure is that most of the schools he's considering most strongly are well away from his California home state. You're talking about programs like Oklahoma. I take the Sooners a bit seriously here. I probably take Ohio State a bit seriously here. As far as the other SEC programs go, obviously there's, LSU just signed 2 pretty impressive freshman running backs, and so maybe that could be a bit of a turnoff for Milton. So within the SEC frame of things, maybe it is a Georgia, maybe it is an Alabama. I think the fact that Georgia was able to host him for that multi-day visit, fresh on the heels of being in Tuscaloosa, I think that's got to help with the Dogs just a bit there. Jamie Kennedy says, Pittman is a pit bull on the recruiting trail. Best recruiter in the nation, hands down. Prove me wrong. Yeah, Jamie, it's going to be hard for anybody to prove you wrong on that, for sure. Rhonda Lynn DeLuca says, well, they heard what they wanted. Yeah, a lot of people checked in on this today to see what happened with Tate Ratledge. No doubt about that. Phil Rogers says, Kirby, get those running backs to join this group. And I would imagine that's the next conversation to be had, as we were just saying before, whether it be Milton or Marshawn Lloyd or someone else. A lot of those conversations will be ongoing. Ray June Johnson says, I believe Pittman is the highest paid offensive line coach already, earning every penny, and he is. And not just for the future coffers of talent that Pittman's filling in, but also that's the formula that Georgia's going to try to use to win a national championship right now. I mean, this is still a program. When it made its change over from Jim Chaney's offensive coordinator to James Coley, the unspoken context for all of that is that the Georgia system that's been working and running the last couple of years, Kirby Smart wants to maintain that. That means that they're still going to run the football a lot. Now, many of us have said, well, hopefully there's still room for a few more big throws per game, and I think there will be. I think there's going to be a pretty talented wide receiver core this year. But the same kind of stuff that you see Ratledge doing in his high school film, that's the same kinds of things that Georgia offensive linemen are doing at the SEC level right now, in opening up gaping holes for running back, mauling people at the point of the attack with that offensive line of scrimmage. That is the recipe that Georgia's still going to try to use to win a national championship this year. So it's not just Sam Pittman earning his money as a guy bringing in future dog. It is still the focal point for how the Dog's going to try to get it done this year. That's an important thing to remember. Wesley Smizzen says, that championship is coming. Go Dogs. Jamie Kennedy says, B.A., how long do you think Pittman will continue to coach? I think that's a really good question. I mean, I think obviously Pittman's still, relatively young, energetic guy. And obviously, I think for the next few years, he's certainly, with the potential of going other places after this past offseason, recommitted himself to Georgia even more. So I don't see any reason why Georgia fans shouldn't feel good about the future of this Georgia offensive line with Pittman leading it. I think it's a great question. Blake Wilson says you can throw the same amount with better receivers and get the production needed. And, Blake, you may be right about that. I remind you, this is a very special edition of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. We're going to go back to Rome, Georgia in just a moment. Hopefully catch up with Jeff Sentell, who will have Tate Ratledge. We'll get a chance to hear more from Ratledge about why he made the choice that he made. As soon as we have something on that, my folks over here will give me a thumbs up. We'll hopefully get a chance to do that. While we're waiting, though, I'll also remind you that, never too early to start thinking, okay, it looks like we are ready to go here. Jeff's getting in position, not quite ready for the interview as of yet, but you see Jeff and Ratledge standing side by side. So for those of you holding on to hope to get a chance to hear from Ratledge, looks like you're going to get a chance to do that in just a moment. By the way, how good does that red Georgia hat look on Ratledge's head right now? And how much fun is this conversation with Jeff Sentell going to be coming up in just a moment? So stick with us here on the Dog Nation video channel as a part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, and we'll give you a chance to hear with Ratledge and Jeff. Now, a little context here. Jeff is about 6'3". I'm 6'2". There's a chance that Jeff is an inch taller than me. So I'm a pretty tall guy. Jeff may be, as much as it pains me to say, he may be an inch or so taller than me. Look, and I know that we're kind of going in and out with our signal there, but if we can see that again, look at how Ratledge towers over Jeff. Now, that gives you an idea. Jeff is not a short person. I am not a short person, but Ratledge just towers over him. Kind of a cool thing to see. Let's hear Ratledge with Jeff Sentell.
How hard was it to keep this thing in?
It was pretty hard, just since especially being in Georgia, everybody hounding you about going to Georgia and all that. It was pretty hard.
When did you know? I think maybe it's been a month. Was it G-Day when it was done, or when was it?
It was after G-Day. I was like, okay, that's where I want to go. But I didn't tell Coach Pittman until about 2 weeks ago.
What did he do?
Oh, he went crazy.
Anything he said that stands out?
Just that he's going to get me where I want to go, which is, of course, the NFL, and we're going to go to work at it. So,
I thought it was funny. We've already seen Sam Pittman's tweet. He's got a specific wardrobe type on there. Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind that?
He called me. He said, "Wouldn't it be live if I got me a purple blazer and put it on for it?" I was like, "That would be." And then he texted me the other day. He was like, "I'm going to put Purple Rain in the background." And I was like, "That's awesome."
You got a friend down there in Florida whose back feels a little bit better now because he knows you'll be watching it and blocking it. How has he worked on you a little bit? What's Carson like as a recruiter? He may not be Pittman, but sounds like he's been working on you a little bit.
He texts me a good bit. It's like, "Hey, I need you to protect me. I need protection." I was like, of course, every quarterback needs protection, so I feel like I'll be protecting a good one.
Tate, what type of player, what type of person, what type of worker will the University of Georgia be getting in Tate Ratledge?
They'll be getting a very physical, hard-working player. I'm going to work my hardest to get to where I want to be, so that's kind of where I am.
I guess you guys didn't need to buy a Tennessee hat for the thing.
We had to buy this one.
I had to buy that one, huh?
Came in about 2 days ago.
I talked to your father, Dean, and he already said that the big power tee's coming off the truck today.
He got him one, a G. He's already got him a G. He's got him a Georgia license plate, too, with a G on it.
The main reason why for Georgia, what was it?
Coach Pittman, really. Winning.
I remember we spoke, maybe it's like 2 months ago, and you told me a story that you needed his help to let another coach down. Mm-hmm. To me, that just kind of crystallized that relationship was in pretty good shape. Was that, did it always just come back down to you felt like Coach Pittman was going to be there for a while and he could get you where you needed to go?
I felt like I tried to be comfortable in a course where he'd get me where I need to go, so.
What does the class of 2020 now need for the University of Georgia? Who are you looking for? Or are you going to start recruiting guys like Carson and everybody else were?
We are. Coach Pittman says he's going to send me a list of names. That Braun kid. We're going to try to get him. I'm going to stay on him from now on. So.
Which kid, one more time?
Braun.
Braun.
What's his first name? Josh Braun?
Joshua Braun.
Joshua Braun.
Big guy.
And then Kendall Milton.
How does for folks that don't understand it, you were born in Tennessee, grew up in Tennessee. I bet the majority of the pictures in your life under the age of 14 or you're wearing Tennessee stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
How does this happen?
Just really building relationships. Relationships make it all, because I couldn't go somewhere that I don't have to get greater relationships. Not saying I didn't at Tennessee, but overall I just feel like I had better relationships at Georgia. So.
Tate, you're up there and you're showing true human emotion. What's going through your mind as you put the hat on? You've known for a while and everybody's comfortable with it. There wasn't second guessing, but what happens to an athlete when this moment arrives in a player's career?
I don't know, you're deciding the rest of your life, really. So, I mean, of course, some emotions going to be played into that, deciding because all the relationships you're going to have for the rest of your life are going to come from where you go to college. So that's kind of a big deal to me.
What are you going to study at Georgia?
Business.
Why business?
I don't know. It just kind of came to me like I kind of want to own my own business, like a strength of the place, really. So.
What did Carson say when you told him? Did he know? What did the other guys know? Are they finding out right now?
Right now.
Oh, wow.
They found out right now.
How does the Instagram chat? Is it an Instagram chat now? Does it change to Tate Ratledge is now a dog, or what does that chat room look like now?
I don't know. I really don't know yet. We'll see.
Tate Ratledge, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining Dog Nation, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sentell there. Let me take a moment to toot his own horn because Jeff doesn't toot his horn himself. You know, Jeff does such a good job of cultivating these relationships. You know, he and Ratledge have spent a lot of time together, a lot of communication there. And so on the moment that Ratledge makes a big decision like this, it's a free, easy, flowing conversation. And I tell you, I feel a personal sense of privilege to know that on the moment this young man makes what is, to this point in time for a 17, 18-year-old, the biggest decision of his life up to this point in time, he's good enough to let Dog Nation in on that and share some of that there. And, I guess in the waning moments here, let me just pause and say, what a cool thing. What a cool thing to grow up working hard, studying in school, trying to make yourself the best young man you can be. And obviously we're partisans here, right? I got red and black on. I'm happy to see Ratledge wearing red and black. But there is something to be said for a family like this, getting to that point to say, one way or another, we're playing SEC football. Now, to most of my audience, he made the right choice. But just getting into this position to make a choice was a pretty cool thing as well. It is great to see. We're going to catch up with Jeff Sentell as part of Dog Nation Daily, which will begin in about 20 minutes from right now. Let me also say thanks to Kroger for making this Before the Hedges special possible. And let me remind you, Ratledge is getting ready to graduate himself from high school in at least another year. Well, when you're thinking about graduation, it's not too early to start thinking about that and thinking about how Kroger can take good care of you, whether it's kindergarten, college, high school, or anything in between. Did you know that you can get a sandwich catering bundle that includes assorted sandwiches, fresh fruit party platters, choice of cake or cupcakes? It's all just $80. This can feed like 20 to 24 people. So if you're giving a big graduation party coming up, that's a great way to think about doing that, one of those Kroger catering bundles. You can go to Kroger.com. You can place your order, and the deli associates there in your local Kroger store can also help you with that as well. So get ready for a fun graduation party. Celebrate that way, and check out your local Atlanta Kroger for more on that. Huge thanks to them for bringing this Before the Hedges special to us, as the four-star offensive tackle Tate Ratledge has made his college choice. We'll have more on this at DogNation.com. You can read Jeff Sentell on that. We're also going to hope to catch up with Jeff in just a moment as a part of Dog Nation Daily. We're about 20 minutes away from that. Plenty more Georgia football to talk about in addition to the Ratledge news. So take a break, get a drink of water, walk around, and then be back here 20 minutes from now for Dog Nation Daily, live this morning on the Dog Nation video channels and podcast, radio, and everything else. Huge thanks to all of you for being with us. Tate Ratledge has picked the Dogs. It is certainly a good day. We'll have plenty more coverage coming up right here on the Dog Nation video channels.